This podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's new Patreon community, the Global Coffee Think Tank. Check the show notes or head to patreon.com/Mapper Forward to find out how you can become a member today. Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and we are joined for episode 2 on coffee branding by Nawar Adra in Sydney from Stitch and Eker. I feel like I have to say your resume every time we start an episode. I will stop doing that.
Stitch, you just say Stitch. It's fine. I think,
Stitch.
It's a bit of both, but yeah, Stitch is kind of, a bit of a focus.
The lead brand. So
Yep.
in the last episode, we were talking about how coffee branding is changing and is quite essential in the coffee industry. And, it's becoming more and more so as people look for ways to differentiate their coffee from other businesses. So today what we want to talk about is, how do you create a coffee brand? How was it for you as somebody who is leading the charge in branding in coffee in Australia?
I mean, I started from the day one that I wanted to start. I was, influenced by a lot of other people and what they've achieved so far. And I always thought, a brand is what we need to create. And when I first started, I didn't really focus a lot on Stitch because back then we had CRS, the collective roasting solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started, there was more community, collective, people working together, a lot of events, did so much work. And I had only a logo. So, for me, I was like, this is it. I just want to create this logo, and that logo will need to look like a gallery type of logo because all the roasters are artists, and I want my logo not to take over their logo, and I just want to look like a support brand. Right. And this is, if people go back to how CRS looked like, it was a very kind of square, the CRS were kind of like on the top of each other. You need to kind of buzzle it out, but it was really simple. If you put it against anybody, it doesn't take anyone away, right? It's a very, very simple brand. But then with Stitch, because it was a brand of mine, it's like kind of, I want something more representing me. I've done a lot of bad decisions.
I wouldn't say bad. I'd say epic. Like you had some epic decisions. Some of the coffee bags were like holographic boxes. Do you remember the holographic boxes?
Yeah.
That was ahead of its time.
I know. It was intense. And you know what? People didn't know who I am. And that's why it was never a thing. Because if you look at it like, who the hell is this? That's not coffee. That's like perfume or, some other
right. But it was
product
epic.
that was not. Yeah,
it really
very,
was
very different. So when I wanted to create, Stitch, I just was thinking, like you said, a logo is the starting point of everything. Yes, it is. But later on, what you realize, actually, a logo is not, is the concept of the whole
business
sphere is what you need to be building, So it's the whole thing from A to Z is you need to think, but you will never get it right. Like, don't ever think your first branding is going to be like the first one. I paid around $7,500 for a logo I never used in my entire history of life.
The reason I'm laughing is because it's like the story I hear from everybody.
Yeah, like I did not like them. I don't know why I did it, but it was very, very stupid decision. Then I kept going with me until I meet someone else, and the other one cost me 14,000. But for a lot of things that I didn't use any, I just used a little bit, But when do you know you need a brand? You need a brand these days because you want to show and add value to your product and add value to your consumer. That's why you do it. You're do it to make sure your people that you're selling the coffee to, they can trust, They can see you accelerating. They can see that this is the brand I want to associate myself with.
Right.
It has the values that I believe in. Like, I'm not saying I have it, to be honest. Like, I'm rebranding the whole website, even though I don't need to, but I'm doing a whole rebrand till next year, because I think my website is lacking my story.
Right.
It's a heavy product focus, but it doesn't say who I am properly. It doesn't say what, not personally me, but like Stitch Coffee as a brand.
Right.
What it stands for doesn't have that connectivity with the audience that we need to target, right?
Can we stay on that for a sec?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about creating a brand, a lot of people think that creating the brand is about creating the product. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're changing your website because it doesn't represent the business and your story and the community, which none of those things, not in there did you say the product. So help us understand that when you're creating a brand, how do you try and build that brand story and the brand visuals and all of that kind of stuff? What's your approach?
I think when you want to create something, I know, like, if you look at our little illustration, might sound a little, some of them are pretty silly. Trust me, I know that, but they make me laugh.
I love them. They make me giggle.
Yeah, like,
which makes you feel good.
Quirky. Yes, exactly. And I think I see the brand like this, and you can take it from Apple, but this is my personal experience, is a brand, it is an intangible service that happened on that moment when you're not there to commit that act.
That is epic. Right? I've never heard it put that way.
Did you understand what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is this. It's that experience of customer service, but without you being there.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do when you look at packaging.
Right.
So, but branding is not just what looks good on the website, because that's digital. Packaging, it's another beast. The amount of mistakes you do with your content and your copyright, and there will be one letter that is not there, and you just printed 10,000 of it.
You've printed 10,000 bottles, and there was one space that wasn't there.
We printed the wrong number on this. Do you know how many boxes we had to put sticker on?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was intense, but
which gets expensive and time consuming and
it's really, really there's a lot of learning, and we still make mistakes, but what I'm trying to say for people who are out there looking into starting something, passion is needed, all that is needed, but I guess you need to have the drive for that passion. You could be passionate about something, but you don't have a drive for it. You're happy to be passionate about race, but you can watch it on TV. You don't have the drive to go and get a car and go, you know what I'm saying?
And participate in the race, yeah.
And and the concept of the brand, that when you put it together, it's about that experience you want to give, or you want to how do you say it properly?
You want to invite your customer into. It's the experience that you want them to have with your product.
Yeah.
So when I start working with a new consulting client and we're talking about understanding where their business is at and understanding what their brand is about, the first question I usually ask them is, I want to have a conversation with them about what their brand values are or their business values are. I want to understand what their vision is for their business. Where is it that they want to arrive? And what's the mission? Like, what's going to be the driving force? What's the bus that's going to take them from where they are, them and their team, from where they are to where they're going to get to? And all of this, if I can't see it reflected in the brand that they've already got out there, then there's a disconnect between what they're trying to achieve, because these are just just three elements of the hundreds of things that go into building a brand. But these are the building blocks. At the end of the day, if you can't figure out where your brand sits when it comes to sustainability, if you can't explain where your brand fits with regards to diversity and with regards to your supply chain practices and all those kinds of things, if you can't tell me, if I can't read that in your brand, that's where the brand is broken to start with. And these are really important building blocks to start thinking about when creating a brand, right?
And again, that's where I'm going through at the moment, because they're there, but the issue is we don't talk about it a lot. It's important to talk about those values if they exist. Don't keep them for yourself. There's no point, communicate it, tell the world about it. And I agree with you, Hannah. And it's actually, I've put through those exercises, right, where people asking me all these questions, and I can tell you it's a very intimidated, hard answer. It's not something I'm just gonna get it on Wikipedia and just say it.
No,
it's really grueling. Difficult. Yeah, when someone, what's your vision? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to do the best thing I can possibly do, right?
Right. What does best mean? And what do you think you can do versus what I really know that you can do? Like it's a whole exploration and voyage into what does those words mean outside of your brain? Because I know what you're saying for you. I know what you want to give your customers, but your brand is about so much more than the product and the service that you deliver.
100%. Yes. That's the concept. It needs to be beyond that. Like, honestly, look, everyone in the world, to be fair, we're all serving way better coffee than 10 years ago. Like, everybody.
Yeah, it's not hard to get good coffee anymore.
Yeah, it's really not that. But yes, I understand climate change and all that we can talk about, different topic. But right now, looking at it from a purchasing and what I could see from the collective and all these young roasters, they all buy great coffee. Like, they're not afraid to spend money and to put $15 green in their blend. We're talking a year ago now, probably a little bit more, but you know what I mean? Like, probably 18, who knows? They changed the perception of our life. But another topic.
And we are going to talk about it.
But generally speaking, from, a wider spectrum, I think we are all buying good coffee these days. We all kind of trying our best. The importers are becoming better at what they're doing. The exporters, I mean, that's another question. But we're trying our best to find importers with similar values and try to work with them and kind of trusting that what they're doing is correct, right? Yeah. Most of us is doing it. In Australia, I would say the world, like, we can 80%.
Yep.
So what is it gonna make us different today? Like, what is it? Is it like, in a car industry, and the reason Tesla became what it is everybody else was just sleeping with, combustion engine, that's all they wanted and that's all they've seen. And it gave that amazing moment for Tesla to be, where it is. And you've got someone who continue injecting money in it and not taking anything out of it and keep it evolving. And that's exactly what you have to do. It's the same thing. It's
disruptive innovation.
It's just, you have to keep the money in it and a portion of it going to branding. Right. That's very, very important. And what do we need to do is focus heavily on how do we make our brand beyond just the cup. Storytelling is so important. You show them, what you've achieved, and really it's not easy. Like, I'm talking about it, but I'll be honest, it's hours and hours of work.
It's years of I mean, even building Elixir, you saw how many times we changed the bottles and the jars, and then the size, and then the, where we put the text, and then should we have labels or should we print directly onto the bottle, and should it be plastic or should it be glass, and all these kinds of things have to evolve as you and this is a key thing, as you understand what you're trying to do and what product you're trying to deliver and what kind of experience you're trying to deliver to your customer. That exploration and that voyage to figure that out is the way that you force your brand to evolve.
100%. And I agree with you.
Masha'al Al-Hamidan came on this podcast a couple months ago, and she was talking about sensory branding. And she was talking about how you can really use the elements of all your different senses to influence the consumer's interaction with your product. But also you can use sensory branding as a way to signal to your customer whether your product is what they're looking for or if it is not what they're looking for.
Interesting.
Which is really, really interesting, right? Like she used the cafe as an example. If you are somebody who wants to go and work in a cafe, but a cafe that you've chosen doesn't want to be the kind of cafe that attracts people who want to go and work on their laptop in a cafe. What they do is they make sure that the music is always turned up just a little bit too loud, and it's never chill music, it's always upbeat music, and the lighting is very low. So they use the different sensory elements within the brand to influence the kind of customer that they want to attract. If they want it to be somewhere where people come and they have conversations, they'll kind of always have chill music. They will make it so that it's a vibrant color scheme, but low lighting, like all these different things that are used to communicate the signal. That you definitely find in like the Stitch kind of, like I look at Stitch and I know how you want me to feel if I'm going to interact with this brand.
Yeah.
There are layers to the branding, and I know you want me to enjoy it. You don't want me to be super serious about it. Versus other coffee brands that want you to get super deep and super serious and, understand all of that. You also want me to like not take you too seriously. You want me to have fun with your brand. But my expectation is managed by the fact that I know that because this brand has been done so slickly, the product inside is probably going to deliver as well.
100%. But not in a serious, emotional matter where you're sitting there and you're kind of looking for the bad words about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of...
Bro, there's a fucking fish at a campsite. How seriously am I meant to take that?
Not much. It's just random events. But yeah, I agree with, and like your feedback the other day, I think the fish and the bear sitting there together, and how each one of us can have a different story behind it. The concept also behind it was it's a mocha tea bag, you know what I mean? Like it's something that you would not expect from a specialty coffee or someone that
100%.
Like two things that shouldn't be together if you're a coffee man,
Right. But my feedback the other day was, to me, I look at that and I say that's the beginning of a story. I want to know what the story is. I want to know who this fish is. And I want to know what this fish is saying to this bear. And if you can draw me into that, because it's begging me as the consumer to get curious. That's the other thing I love about your brand. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I look at it and I'm like, oh, why is there a fish sitting with a bear? The fish's tail is right next to the fire. Bears usually eat fish. Yeah. So like, is the bear, how are they friends? Like, and that's gold. That's branding gold right there. Like if you're piqued my curiosity about that kind of a thing, and I'm sitting there going, oh, like I wonder what they talk about. That's an opportunity for a brand to turn around and go, maybe I could personify these two characters, 100%. Give them a name, and introduce my consumer to what this fish and this bear is about.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's things we are working on. But
that's what I figured. Like that was the next iteration of the brand.
It's freaking
hard work,
though.
and it's expensive. It's super expensive, which we're going to talk about in the next episode. So let's talk about money in the next episode, and then after that, what I want to do is talk about, with these constantly and rapidly changing times in the coffee industry, what are some things that business owners need to do to be able to keep up without having to spend hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s on constantly trying to adapt to their brand. So let's do that. All right, folks, peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.